welcome back to Talkin Ducks. It's been a minute, hasn't it? Well, let's address the elephant in the room here. Obviously, Root Sports is coming to an end here by the end of the year, and in fact, things were shut down, depending on your cable provider, much earlier than that. So that left us with an impromptu bye week in the middle of the season, and obviously, with our obligations to some of our partners, we decided to pivot and punt for a couple of weeks. Now, obviously, there's some developments in the Oregon season during that time, but there's still plenty of football remaining, especially this big matchup against USC. So we appreciate you for tuning in, checking in on us. Yes, we're all good. Aaron Fentress is still alive. Don't worry. Like, everyone's doing fantastic here, and we're excited to move forward. So, without further ado, Jordan Kent, joined by George Wrighster, Anthony Newman, and Aaron Fentress. And guys, we're going to just go about 20 minutes straight here, and we look at this matchup coming up here, Oregon versus USC. And George, this is interesting because this game has kind of snuck up on everybody, to be honest, when you are looking at what Oregon did against Indiana and some of these Big Ten opponents, and then boom, here comes USC, a top 15 team taking on the Ducks here.
Yeah, I think you always knew that USC was going to be at least a notable game because of their brand. It's USC and how badly they want to beat Oregon right now. There is the recruiting races, the head coaches were hired at the same time. There's a lot of parallels, and they want what Oregon has right now for the last 20 years, and Oregon wants what USC has historically.
Yeah. And it's a really good point because coming into this game here, Anthony, I mean, this is kind of a swing when it comes to momentum in the Big Ten. Obviously, Oregon wins it last year, but now USC, this would be a signature win for the Trojans. And it almost feels like they would leapfrog the Ducks as far as the pecking order in the Big Ten. And this is riding on this game right now.
Well, also, excuse me, this is a recruiting game. Oregon is getting a lot of the top recruits out of Southern California, and USC is not happy about that. So this would be a big win if USC could win in Autzen Stadium, and it's going to be a battle. It's like the old days. And for me, I always was looking up at USC. They're at the top of the pedestal, and now USC is looking up at Oregon. So USC is coming in. It's going to be a dogfight. It really is.
Aaron, where would you rank this game as far as how big it is this season for Oregon?
Ooh, well, it's the biggest game this week.
That wasn't the question, though. Is this a more important game than the Indiana game, even?
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Well, no, because had they Indiana, they might be ranked number 2 right now instead of number 7, right? This game, though, I think it can mean everything in terms of them getting into the playoffs. If they lose this, they're going to have uphill climb even at 10-2 because a lot of things are going on around them, and you got to finish in the top 10 because of the at-large bid to the G5 team and the automatic champion coming out of the ACC. So you got to be in the top 10. They lose this, they're going to fall, and they're going to be tied with USC, and chances are USC is going to go ahead of them, and USC has UCLA remaining, whereas Oregon has a tough game up at Washington. So this is pretty much as close to a must-win as you can get. So, yeah, it's a very important game. Indiana is still the most important one on the schedule. This is number 2 right now, and I fear that if they lose this, that could mean a lot of trouble for the Ducks playoffs hopes.
See, I disagree because the Indiana game, 2 top 10 matchups, and let me know your thoughts here, George. You win it, great. If you don't, okay, your season doesn't change that much if you lose to Indiana as far as getting out of the playoffs. I think Oregon's out of the playoffs if they lose this game to USC. George, do you think so?
Probably, but I do think that Oregon is well thought of. And remember, we talked about this benefit of the doubt thing earlier in the year. So that could come into play if they do lose the football game, especially if chaos happens around them, if Alabama gets beat by Auburn and other things happen, which are very well within the realm of possibility because we haven't had that chaos weekend yet. But the thing is that I know that people are going to put a lot on this game. And yes, it is important because it's the most important game of the season because it's the next game. But Oregon is at a place now where they are used to being hunted. Like every single week, somebody is trying to give you their best game instead of you trying to get up for USC. you are way up here. USC's trying to get back up there, so they're trying to scratch you down. But it was the same thing with Iowa, same thing with Rutgers, same thing with Northwestern, and every other team is you get their best every single week. So I think that Oregon is better prepared for that.
But let me add this. Let me add this though. Just one thing. Everybody keeps saying if Oregon loses, it's over and all that, and we all get that. But isn't Oregon in a good place right now?
No, they're in a
They
great
control
place.
their own. They
I
control
agree with
their-
you.
they
They're in a great
control their
place.
own-
That's why they don't want to
control their
lose,
own
because they're in a
destiny.
great place
Yeah,
right now.
Well, but they control their own destiny.
Yes.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what you want to be as a football team. You're not waiting on some other team. Oh, we got to wait and see if they beat this team. Now it's like, hey, let's go out there and win this football game.
You don't
And then-
need no help. You are
No,
your help.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't need any
Exactly.
help at all, Aaron. And I just think if they lose this game, I don't see how they're in the playoffs at this point, because you would have lost to SC. Your best win of the season would be at Iowa, arguably. There's teams ahead of you that have much more impressive resumes, even if you finish the year off with 2 losses. So I think absolutely Oregon has to win this game to get to the playoffs. But either way, Autzen Stadium should be rocking. But let's take a closer look at the matchup here, Aaron. I mean, you've seen the Trojans before. How do these two teams stack up? Typically, Oregon's got the speed, the athleticism advantage against most teams in the Big Ten. That might not be the case against the SC.
Yeah, definitely. They're pretty loaded on offense, pretty special receiver in Lemon, et cetera. Good quarterback, good running back, and freshman as well, who's tearing it up. The big thing with them has been defense, though, right? 3 years ago, the last time they played was 23, I think.
I've been saying that for years.
That's way
Well,
too
I know,
long.
But listen, Bo Nix lit them up that year. It was 36-27. It was 36-14, I think, going into the fourth. And then Caleb Williams led a couple touchdown drives. But that team was giving up 34 points per game, that USC team. This was only giving up like 21, 22. So the defense has improved greatly. Still, they give up yards on the ground. And I just see Oregon being able to handle them with the running game and the combination of the passing game, which is something that USC has not done well against teams that can do both. They've done good well against teams that can only do one, and they shut down the one. Even Iowa. Iowa ran the ball a little bit, but they couldn't throw, so they couldn't pull out the victory. But in games like Illinois was able to throw for 300 yards, and their other loss I think was Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame ran all over them. So they've shown that they can be had in either area as long as there's some balance to go with it, and Oregon has that balance. So I do think USC's defense is much better than it's been in a long time, but I don't know if it stacks up well against Oregon's lineup, especially now that Dante Moore in the passing game got it going again last week against Minnesota, which I thought was an imperative thing to happen because the passing game had been struggling, and I didn't want to see them coming into USC having to flip the switch all of a sudden. They got it going last week with a record-breaking performance by Dante Moore, so that was good to see.
Yeah, George, your thoughts? Because, I mean, listen, you followed SC this year, and they're
Yeah.
starting to kind of turn things around here underneath Lincoln Riley and putting together arguably their best season since he's been the head coach. And what do you see as far as maybe the key matchup or how these two teams stack up against one another?
Oh, to me, that this is clear that this is going to be about, can USC's defense get stops against Oregon's offense, and how many stops is Oregon's defense going to be able to get? Because Oregon comes in with the number 1 pass defense in the country and one of the top defenses in the country in terms of yards allowed. USC is 18 points worse on the road than they are at home on offense. Defense, they're 6 points worse on the road. Their yards per play, 2 yards less per play on the road. They are an awful road team. They're 16 points worse on third down percentage on offense and 14 points worse on third down on defense. Literally every single important stat on offense and defense, they are significantly worse on the road. And it's not like, and probably the toughest road environment that they played in was they played at Notre Dame and they also played at Illinois. But Autzen Stadium is going to bring that same level, if not even more level of intensity and ferociousness than Notre Dame Stadium did, and the team's better. So I think that for USC, this is a huge test. And for Oregon, you have to do what you do. Line them up, run them over. Line them up, run them over, play action. Line them up, run them over, trick play. I mean, it is a simple formula. You have to be the more physical team because USC, they do have some dudes on the defensive line, and one of them is a kid that almost came to Oregon in Jakeem Stewart, but they are thin on the defensive line. Kamari Ramsey got hurt last week. We don't know if he's playing or if he's limited, and he's their second best safety because Bishop Fitzgerald is a real player. Their other safety, their tackle Elijah Page. He was at practice, but who knows what he actually did at practice? He missed. He went out of the game as well. So it's not exactly shaping up the way that they would expect, and that may why the line went from 7.5 to 10.5. And now it's back down to 9.5. So whether that point was the betting line movement or whether they may be getting, a player like Wayman Jordan, the running back, who knows?
George, that's a fantastic TED Talk on this matchup. Thank you for all that information. That was impressive right there. We got betting lines, we got all that stuff there. So it's going to be fascinating, I agree, just with some of the deficiencies that SC truly has. And Anthony, listen, you're aware of this. Even though the defensive numbers might have been improved for SC, this is not a dominant SC defense like we've seen when they were in some of their title years. This defense still has issues.
As a defensive coach, as a defensive player, defense wins championships. When you're in a state championship game or a high school championship game, or you're in an NCAA championship game, and it's for everything. You got to win this game. You got to do everything to win this game. You need a defense. Okay, when you play against a good football team and you want to beat a good football team, you need a defense that can make stops, get turnovers, create problems, chaos. USC, they have an okay defense. Yes, they got an offense, no doubt. But when you face a team that has an offense and a defense, well, now you're dealing with some issues. And for 4 quarters, and you're playing, again, like George said, on the road, on turf, a little chilly, it could be a factor.
And so then we get to the quarterback battle here, Aaron. I mean, this is Dante Moore versus Maava, and who do you feel like has the upper hand here? Because these are two high-powered offenses that can obviously throw the ball throughout the air. This is one of those games where it feels like whatever QB plays better, which is cliche, will probably win.
Yeah. So, how many games has Oregon played against, or how many teams have Oregon played against that had an above-average quarterback on the field this year? Indiana?
Indiana.
Penn State.
Penn State. Would you say
no, he's way below average. So
No, that kid cannot throw the football. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Really quality quarterback.
I tried.
I would even go with Kaliak Manis is an above average quarterback over there at Rutgers. He's throwing for well over 300 yards a game.
And they shut him down. But this team clearly can run. They have great receivers. And this, the quarterback's solid, but I love looking at a guy's stats and then going to the non-conference. Of his 18 touchdowns, 6 came against Georgia Southern, and I don't know who this other team is, Missouri State, the Missouri State Bears. That means he only has 12 conference opponents and Notre Dame. That's not very scary, but he's clearly shown he's capable of putting up 300 yards if needed. He's got great receivers. They have a really good running game. So I do think they're going to put points on the board. For me, the game is on the other side. I think Dante Moore is more talented. He's been up and down, but with the running game, the way it's been rolling, about 1,000 yards the last 4 games combined, I just don't think that combination in Austin Stadium is going to be something USC can handle. So I give Dante Moore a slight advantage, 1, because he's better, and 2, because he's going to have a running game at home that's going to do some damage against that Trojan defense.
What about you, George? What do you think?
I like Maava, but the key to him is when you watch him play, if he's able to roll, when he escapes the pocket, he loves to go to his right. You cannot let him go to his right because he will find Mekhi Lemon. He will find Jacoby Lane. He is it'll look like he's throwing the ball away. And you're like, how the hell did he catch that? But when he escapes to his left, he is significantly less efficient. He's going to run the ball about 90% of the time. If he does that, and he won't throw it because then he's got to get his shoulders all the way around. So I think that that's going to be a key is forcing him to escape out of the pocket towards his left in terms of limiting big plays. And then also just being sticky with these wide receivers and not falling for the eye candy. Everything in this offense is built upon eye candy. It is they do these counters where they pull the guard and the tackle, which I don't think will be able to be effective against Oregon. But yeah, that, and then they do trick plays and all this. If you can keep the trick plays in front of you and all that, you'll be in good shape.
Mm. And Anthony, it's interesting. George just pointed out, as a defense, you want to try and contain him, make sure he doesn't roll out to his right, Maava. How would you do that? How would you game plan this one if you're talking to your defense and you know this about their quarterback?
Well, it's a controlled rush. You understand that if he escapes a certain way, then he's going to have some success. So you have to block that off. You have to prepare maybe every time we blitz to his right and keep a guy in contain and make him go the opposite way. But also, I think with USC's offense, they run the ball a little bit better than they have in the past, and that helps their passing game. Okay, so when you run the ball a little bit better, you open up that passing game. So Oregon right now has to really think about, they got receivers, but you got to stop the run. You really do. And Oregon has the front seven to stop the run, but it needs to be done. It needs to be executed. I think that's a big factor because USC has never had a running game. They're throwing the ball all over the place, but now they can run the ball pretty good.
So then you look at some of the matchups here in this game, Aaron, and we've thrown a lot of names out there, but is there any particular individual matchup, one-on-one, or maybe position group versus another one that you think is going to have a big impact in this game?
Penny versus Lemon, man. Let's get it on.
That's a good one.
Penny clearly is a great corner. Yeah, they haven't played the greatest lineup of quarterbacks this season, so now you have a good quarterback armed with a definite NFL-bound wide receiver who's got 1,000 yards already this season. That's going to be fun to watch because Oregon's going to want to be in situations where they can maybe rely on Penny to play some man-to-man when they're bringing some pressure. Maybe he doesn't have safety help or not. If you can pull that off in this type of game, that's huge for the Ducks defense. But that's going to be one to watch because if anyone can break this game open and turn what I think could be a touchdown win for Oregon into a touchdown loss, it's a big play receiver who gets loose deep and is making big plays, keeping those chains moving or scoring touchdowns or getting explosion plays. So that matchup for me is one I definitely want to watch.
Yeah, let's
it would have been like me against Newman back.
Sure.
Here we go.
Well, let's make sure Lemon doesn't sour Oregon's hopes here. George, let's go ahead and get to the matchup that you're looking at here.
Oh, for me, it is going to be Oregon's linebackers continuing to be good in pass coverage, and because they've done a decent job of stopping the run, and we've talked about where Oregon is strong at in the secondary and on the defensive line, and it feels wrong to call the to say, oh man, this linebacking crew is the weakest part of the team. I mean, some plays has to be the weak point, and it's like they are still above average in terms of how they have played. But I love what I'm seeing out of Jerry Mixon Jr. I think this kid's a stud. And Betcher has played well as well. But the only thing I want to see them do better is when they hit people in the hole, stop them. Like, I need progress to be stopped. I don't want them to be falling forward and all of that stuff. But it's going to come down to the wide receivers, like Aaron said, in terms of when they throw the ball up, those jump balls to Jacoby Lane, can we stop them? Can that ball end up on the ground without a ridiculous flag, a yellow piece of laundry sitting on the turf? And Mekhi, that's who he's going to on third down. It is Mekhi Lemon. He's going to find him. So you have to find ways to get him to throw the ball in trouble because he will do it if you stop the run game. He did it against Nebraska. Is you stop the run game, he finds ways to throw the ball to the other team, picks or near picks. And the same thing happened against Notre Dame as well.
Anthony, your matchup in this game. I know you're going to look at this Oregon's defense most likely. What do you think is either the key player-to-player or position group matchup in your opinion?
No, I'm going to go the other defense. I'm going to go USC's defense.
Okay, I like it. I like
it. Against the tight ends of Oregon. So here's what Oregon's doing. Oregon's running 13 personnel, 12 personnel, meaning 3 tight ends or 12 tight ends. Now, that's a tough situation as a defensive coordinator because if
12 tight ends, is that legal?
Excuse me, two tight ends and 3 tight ends, excuse me. That's even tougher. But when you bring those big boys on the field, you're thinking run stoppers. Okay, we got to get our run stoppers on the field. We got to get maybe more linemen, defensive linemen, more linebackers. But Oregon will spread these tight ends out. Next thing you know, there's a one-on-one against Sadiq. Well, that's a matchup problem. That's a linebacker or a safety on a guy who runs like a receiver. And so that's what Oregon has that advantage when you start playing that personnel game. Because, let's be straight. Oregon's receivers, they're banged up. They're gone. We don't even know if these guys are playing, So let's go with the tight ends. And we can run the football. That's why we're one of the best running teams in the country. Or we can throw the football to these big guys who have little guys trying to cover them. I think that's a great matchup to watch.
We've seen Kenyon get loose on wheel routes and seam routes as if he's a receiver, and we've seen Johnson get loose on deep corner routes, for big giant gains, and he's a deep threat down the middle on the seam as well. So yeah, they're utilizing those too well. And then we all know George is sitting there like, yeah, I'm the resident tight end. I can tell you all about this and how valuable tight ends are. But those two block well as well, which is what's helping the run game, and then of course helping the play action. So, but I do wonder. No DeCorian and no Gary Bryant Jr. McClellan stepped up with one of the most amazing touchdown catches in the corner or side of the end zone you'll ever see in your life. But could the lack of depth of wide receiver hurt them in this game if one or both doesn't return? Like that could be a problem, even though you have Sadiq.
I have a sneaky suspicion that we see at least one single-digit number back in the offense.
Looking for some revenge. Looking for some revenge against his old program.
At least one. I would bank on 2, but
at least one.
Yeah, at least one single-digit number should be in the lineup.
All right, let's get to our predictions for this one. Oregon, basically a 2-score favorite over SC. How do you see this one shaking out here? Let's start with you, Anthony.
It's going to be a close game. I'm going to go 35-21.
Okay.
They're going to score some points. There's no doubt. You can't stop a great offense. USC is going to score. They're going to move the football. That's what they do. But Oregon, USC's defense, it's still a question mark, and I think Oregon's offense is much better.
George.
I'm going to go 34-20 or 23. I'll go 34-23.
Okay. Aaron.
Y'all are drinking the Kool-Aid a little too much. There's no reason whatsoever. Nothing has happened this season to say that Oregon's going to win that game by 2 touchdowns. There's just no way. They don't.
Who said 2 touchdowns? I gave you 23.
It takes 2 touchdowns to overcome 11. Didn't you say 11?
No, actually it doesn't. It takes 1, a 2-point conversion, and a field goal.
Okay, my bad. Anyway, over 10. Let's just go with that then. There's no reason. They barely beat Iowa. Yes, they beat Minnesota by a lot, but Minnesota's offense is horrible. It has an offense. They didn't blow out Penn State, which fell apart after that game. Indiana came in there and beat them. When they're playing a team that has a really good offense, they're going to score points. And by them scoring points and moving the ball, they're going to reduce some time for Oregon to do the same. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth contest.
So would you have thought they would have scored more points against Notre Dame? Would you have thought they would have scored more points against Notre Dame?
This is true. Aaron, yeah. What's your prediction here, Aaron?
Notre Dame was smashed Oregon. What are you talking about?
What?
That's for another episode. That is for a whole other episode. We have content for next week already.
You're really reaching now, Aaron.
Aaron, score prediction.
31-25. 31-25 Oregon.
25. Huh.
How the hell did you get to 25 points?
I like odd numbers. I got it from Chris Berman a long time ago. I like doing the odd numbers.
I got 31-27 Oregon in this one. 31-27. I think it's going to be a 1-score game. I think it's going to be a great one. But hey, thanks again for jumping back on board with us, Talkin Ducks. We'll be back next week to break down this game against SC and set the stage for Oregon's matchup against Washington. From all of us here, thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time.